Yo, what is up guys, and welcome to another Wild Rift video. And in today's video I'm gonna show you guys a tier list for every single role in the game. And with the addition of all the new runes, with all the balance changes, so much has changed again. Like, it's crazy. As you can see, like Singed sitting in the S plus tier. I'll explain all of it during the tier list, by the way. But especially, oh oops, I didn't want to move that one. Especially this one right here. The Dragon Lane tier list literally turned upside down. There's timestamps in the description if you want to skip around in the tier list. Before we get into it, a quick word from the video sponsor. This video is sponsored by WildStats.gg. Guys, this website is amazing, and I'm gonna be putting my name right here so you guys can actually look me up as well. It's HellsDevil YT #hell. So you can see so many things about you, but if you want to see what I've been playing, for example, you can see my recent matches right here. As you can see, I'm working on some champions. But what I really love is seeing this graph right here with the ranked progression. As you can see, I've been winning a lot of games these days. It's going up really hard. Another thing that you can do is you just go to the leaderboards and you can pick a player out there, and if that player has the history turned on, you can look at the history as well. So for example, this player right here who's been winning a lot of games, you can see what he's been playing. So Diana has been working out very well for him with a Rod of Ages and a Rabadon's Death Cap. So not Nashor's Tooth, but going for this build, and Irelia as well. It's very interesting to see how these top tier players have been playing as well. And man, this guy plays a lot of games, Jesus. If you guys want to improve your game as well, then check out the link in the description to wildstats.gg. So now on to the tier list. This is the Baron lane, and I changed up quite a few things about it. The last time I made my Baron lane tier list, I didn't put anyone in the S plus tier, but now I feel that I was a little wrong. And also because of the meta change a little bit, Camille is just Camille. Like, it's crazy how Camille always feels so damn powerful. It's just crazy to me. Because like right now, yet again, she feels S plus tier. You know, when you reach the late game with Camille, unbeatable. And like laning with her is surprisingly easy as well. It's like, so it's, I mean, I gotta be honest, I'm not complaining because I'm saying it's so dumb, blah, 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 but I would, I prefer seeing Camille as a broken champion than seeing someone like Gragas or Garen or, a stupid champion that's like a no-brain champion. Camille is a very highly skilled champion and is only really S plus tier in the right hands. By the way, guys, I quickly want to ask for your opinion. Look, I did my beard. I tried to do some cool fading. Like here, it's like 2.5 millimeters, and then here it's like 3.5, 4.5. Here is 5. Did I do a good job? I think I did a pretty decent job, right? It looks pretty nice. Here I made like a straight line, and here I shaved. I don't know what I'm talking about. Oops, let's actually get back to this. Okay, so next up we have Garen, and exactly as I mean, this is the brain dead champion. He's still S plus tier. Like, I was kinda wrong about saying that Hullbreaker sucks on Garen. I admit to my mistake. I still don't like it, but I acknowledge that it works, and I acknowledge that it's really powerful to get a Hullbreaker and split push like crazy with Garen, because no one can win a 1 versus 1 against the champion. Of course, there's champions that can win 1 versus 1, there's exceptions, but like when you have a super fat Garen with a Hullbreaker, it's so incredibly hard to win a 1 versus 1 against him in the late game. So very, very strong champion. Next up, we have Singed, and I just want to talk about Singed, guys. In the Baron lane. I mean, come on. I'm bringing too much hype to him. He's not S plus tier, he's S tier. But I still want to put a star next to him because I'm jumping on a Singed hype train. This champion is insane. And with the new changes, the new buffs to Rylai's Scepter, the slows go from 20% to now 30%. When you hit the enemies with your gas on Singed, you're gonna be slowing everyone by 30% for 4 seconds at least. All you have to do is just hit them with the gas and they're gonna be slowed for 4 seconds. And if they continuously jump into your gas, they're gonna continuously refresh this slow. It's crazy. Like, Singed was already okay, pretty good in solo queue. In competitive, he was broken, but I'm talking about solo queue right here. But now with the changes to the Rylai's Scepter, it's just kinda broken. In the mid lane, it's broken, but in the Baron lane, it's just insanely strong. So next up we have Gragas, and Gragas is Gragas. Like, not much to talk about, right? Like, Gragas is just basically full AP Gragas. Also tank Gragas, but not full tank Gragas, like semi-tank Gragas, where you go for the Rod of Ages. I made videos on this. If you want to watch it, just look up HellsDevil Gragas, and you know what I'm talking about, like the semi-tank Gragas build, where you go for the Rod of Ages, Iceborne Gauntlet, Sunfire Ages, blah, 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 Leandries, etc., etc. It's really, really good. Next up, we have Graves. Graves in the Baron lane, because of the Hole Breaker, S tier. Really, really strong. And it's not broken or anything, but it's just very, very powerful. And the only thing is, though, he doesn't really work with the new runes, so he does struggle a little bit against the ADCs, because you know, when you have an Ashe or a Caitlyn or Jinx with a lethal tempo, she can stack up very easily on the Graves, because like Graves doesn't have a lot of range. So yeah, that's why that's why Graves is just not S plus tier. Shen in competitive S plus tier, in solo queue S tier. I heavily underrated this champion when he came out. I thought that he was going to be kind of useless because he just looked so bad. But now that people have kind of figured him out, and I'm working on a Shen video, by the way, just so you guys know, I would definitely rate him as an S tier champion. Next up, we have Jax. And the thing about Jax is, I thought he would be broken with lethal tempo, but no, he's just okay. He's okay, right? Like, as a split pusher, you can even build a Hole Break on him. With the new rune Demolish, you know, it all works very, very well on him. And lethal tempo works very well on him too. But he just still, like, he kept getting nerfed and nerfed and nerfed, that he's just not S plus tier anymore. He's just an S tier champion. If you reach the late game, he can still hard carry, but early game, you're going to be struggling a little bit more. Then we have Riven, and Riven is strong, guys. Riven is really, really strong. I wouldn't say S plus tier, because she does struggle a little bit against a few of these matchups, but besides, like, Riven is crazy strong. You can hard carry teamfights with this champion. She skills very well into the late game. It's just a really, really powerful champion right now. Especially because they buffed her as well. They buffed her third ability, made the cooldown less. Renekton is really strong as well. He skills better into the late game too. It's true that his early game is a bit weaker, but you don't really feel it. Like, his early game is still super duper powerful. And now, as I said, his late game is like also powerful because he heals more. Next up, we have Nasus, which is the brother of Renekton. I love Nasus, and I put a star next to him because I feel this is a rising star. Nasus is a rising star because people are figuring him out, right? Like, when Holebreaker came out, when Divine Sunderer came out, I already called that Nasus was gonna be broken, and people are figuring him out. Like, I made a few Nasus videos, sure, but now, like, even pro players are acknowledging Nasus. They're acknowledging Nasus, they're playing him in a ranked match, and they're seeing the potential that he has to offer. So I'm telling you guys, Nasus is strong. Next up, we have Sett, and even though Sett kept getting nerfed and nerfed and nerfed and nerfed and nerfed, he is still strong. He's still very, very strong, actually. The true damage that he has, just the, you know, the first ability which deals so much damage, the third ability to catch an enemy off guard, and then the ultimate as well. He just has it all. It's just such a powerful champion. Really good frontline, really good fighter as well, really good in 1 versus 1s as well. He just really has it all, guys. Next up, we have Irelia. In the right hands, Irelia is like utterly broken, but I just put her in the S tier because she does struggle against a lot of these lane matchups. Like, she's bad against Camille, she's bad against Garen, she's bad against Singed, she's bad against Nasus, she's bad against Renekton, etc, etc, etc. She's bad against Shen. Like, she's bad against a lot of these matchups. So even though Irelia is such an overtuned champion right now, I feel she's just bad against these matchups. Next up, we have Tryndamere, which I feel is a rising star as well. Not as much as Nasus, but with the new lethal tempo, with the new, or with the buffed Solari charge blade as well, I feel he's strong. Like, he is strong. It's not that I feel it. I can see and I can feel that he's strong because people have been playing it, and I would just put him in like bottom S tier. You know, strong but not anything broken. Next up, we have Olaf. Doesn't need an introduction. Olaf is just really, really powerful. I don't feel he's broken because, yet again, he does get countered by some of these matchups, like the Camille, like the Graves. Riven does pretty well into him too. Nasus. So, yet again, it's like a really good champion, but he just gets countered by the meta. That is why he's gone down a little bit. Jace is just okay, I guess. Like, Jace is very strong in the lane. He does so much damage, but he falls off in the late game. Like, Jace is incredibly powerful in the mid game. during those team fights. And if you can snowball, you can just finish off the game with Jace. But if you don't snowball and you get to that late game, a lot of other champions are going to be outscaling you. Darius sitting in the bottom of the S tier, even though his attack speed got nerfed, which definitely hit him, like he's bottom S tier, he's still okay. Like he's still okay. His ultimate is still good, and with the Black Cleaver, he's still okay. It's just okay. It's not anything super good. It's just okay. Next up we have Wukong. You know, Wukong is great with the Divine Sunder, with the Death Stance. He can do surprisingly well in the lane as well because of his first ability. He can trade very effectively by healing up and dealing a lot of damage. Just an okay champion. He's very good at team fighting as well. Mundo is super underrated, guys. Super duper underrated. He does get countered by the meta as well because Camille does good against him. Nasus completely bonks him to death. Graves does pretty decently against him. So there's like a lot of champions that do pretty well against him, but if you're up against a very tanky composition, or basically if you're up against a lot of melee champions, Mundo works like a gem because your first ability does so much damage to them. You can just constantly keep poking them, and it's so easy to hit them because they're melee champions. They have to step up to you. So if you're up against those types of champions that are not as slippery, Mundo is great. But if you're up against like an Ezreal or a Vayne, then Mundo is going to struggle a lot. Or like Orianna or something. And there's just so many champions that counter out the Mundo, like Brand as well. It's just hard to play him. Fiora feels like much weaker than before. She's good against melee champions, but you're not going to be against melee champions. You're going to be up against those lethal tempo ADCs that are going to be completely out-kiting you. So she just doesn't feel that strong anymore. Pantheon, okay, but he gets outskilled in the late game by everyone. So, you know, his ult is great, his early mid game is great, but you really have to make use of it. You really have to know how to play him. And if you're unable to make good use out of that, then he's going to be useless in the late game. Echo, now this is the new champion, feels a little bit underwhelming in the mid lane, guys. He feels a little bit underwhelming. Sorry, in the Baron lane. I definitely feel he's okay, but in the Baron lane, yet again, against these big bruiser matchups, he just doesn't do too well. He just doesn't really do too well. He's much better against those squishy enemies where he can actually do some crazy burst combos. And against those super tanky champions, he's just not going to do too much. I want to talk about Cannon real quick too, because Cannon with the ultimate shield is not really worth to go for even. Cannon is just not that good either. He's okay. Like in the lane, he does okay. During team fights, he's okay. And in the late game, he's pretty good. But, you know, all those gaps were like throughout the mid game, throughout the early game. If you're unable to one-shot someone with your ultimate, that's where he's like super weak. So he has more weaknesses than strengths. Yeah. So let's go to the jungle. The rest is not really worth talking about. And this one is very interesting. Xin Zhao is just so strong. It's crazy. Xin Zhao is just like, what am I supposed to say? He beats out everyone in the early game. He's even stronger than Lee Sin in the early game. He's even stronger than Lee Sin in the early game, and even in the late game, his ultimate is so valuable because you can push out enemies that engage, you can block out damage from ranged champions. It's just overall a very, very strong champion. He also clears jungle very, very fast. Next up we have Riven. Riven jungle is hella strong, guys. It's hella strong. She has such hard carry potential, especially if you pair her up with enchanters like the Janna, like the Lulu, like the Yumi. So powerful in the jungle. Her jungle clear is pretty good as well, like it's pretty fast. So she just has it all as well. Her ganking struggles a little bit, but besides that, she's just a perfect champion to play. Next up we have Lee Sin, very strong, but I just don't feel that he's stronger than Riven and Xin Zhao at this moment. One of the strongest early game champions. You know, his early game pressure is insane, his ganking. Like basically, if you want to get your team ahead, you play Lee Sin, because his ganks are like incredibly powerful and you can't avoid them because he has so many dashes, so many damaging abilities, just so much burst damage, everything. Next up is Kha'Zix, and Kha'Zix is really good as well. He's not a tank, his ganking is not as strong before level 5, but once you do get level 5, guys, Kha'Zix is insane, and that ultimate is such a disgusting ability as well. Allows you to reposition during team fights. It's just such a good champion right now. Next up is Olaf, the dude that can run through everyone. Doesn't need an introduction either in the jungle. In the jungle, he's still S plus tier, especially if you pair him up with enchanters. But like that, when you reach level 5 with Olaf, it's just crazy how hard he can go with the Ragnarok. The one thing you need to understand about Olaf though is he struggles in the late game. He definitely falls off in the late game because when you use the ultimate, you lose all of your armor and magic resist, which makes you very vulnerable to damage. So in the late game, you can't just run through the enemy as easily because they'll have so much damage, they'll just shut you down. Next up, we have Nunu. Nunu is strong, okay? Nunu is just very strong, and his ganking is great, his early game is great, his mid game is great, his late game is great, his 1v1ing is okay, he can outsmite pretty much anyone, his late game tankiness is insane, and then his damage in the late game is also pretty nice. He just has it all, guys. Next up is Gragas jungle, and the thing about Gragas is he's just always a good pick, and in this meta, and this is also why Nunu is in the S plus tier, Riot keeps, or the Wild Rift devs keep making jungle harder for AD champions. They make it harder to clear for AD champions, and they make it easier to clear for AP champions. Like, AP champions do more damage to the jungle, red buff got nerfed, and like AP champions are just better now. So starting off at the blue buff, for example, with an AP jungler is definitely a viable strategy right now. Next up we have Morgana, same story, AP junglers do more damage, and Morgana does more damage to the jungle now too. Her second ability deals 240% to jungle camps, and she has the fastest jungle clear in the game. And in this meta where also the Rift Scuttler got nerfed, this is where Morgana shines, because you can just power farm yourself through the jungle, get a lot of golden experience, while the enemy is going for Rift Scuttlers, you're just taking your entire jungle. Next up is Graves jungle, great champion as well. You know, they buffed his jungle clear as well with his first ability. Graves is very powerful, of course, so just good. Let's just say he's good, S tier. Wukong, the only reason that Wukong is here is because of his team fighting, guys. Wukong's ultimate during team fights is just so good. Like, it deals so much damage, the knockup is so good. It's just a perfect ability, really. Like, it's just such a perfect ultimate to have in your team. Also, like, his 1v1ing is great. His ganking is good. He's just such a good champion. Next up is Jax jungle. Sitting in the middle of the S tier. He is like, okay. You know, he's okay. You can farm up. It's gonna be a little harder to farm up on Jax right now because, as I said, right, like, they kept nerfing Jax. They kept nerfing his attack speed. So it's gonna be much harder to power farm yourself to the late game. But when you get to that late game with the lethal tempo especially, really, really powerful. Next up we have Evelynn, and you may be asking, like, what the hell is Evelynn doing in the S tier? In the middle of the S tier? Wasn't she S plus tier? That's correct. But with the new wards, she got dropped to the S tier, guys. The new control ward absolutely hard counters Evelynn because it can reveal her, it can show where she is, and like, enemies can just put it down and they'll see an Evelynn coming. So it's a bummer for Evelynn mains out there, but I love to see it because Evelynn is not utterly broken anymore now. By the way, guys, make sure you give the video a like if you enjoy it. I should probably make it a challenge. What champion should I do, though? I'm already gonna do Brand. I'm already gonna do Singed. I don't know. Just let me know in the comments what you want to see. Give the video a like, and I'll see whatever gets commented the most. I'll just make a video of. Who cares? We'll see. We'll see what it's gonna be. In before it's gonna be freaking Aurelion Sol. I actually played Aurelion Sol once today. I inted so hard again. It's so hard to play this champion. So yeah, now onto the jungle again. Camille jungle is great. You know, her jungle clear is okay. It's not broken like it used to be, of course, with the third ability, but it's okay. Her ganking is amazing after level 5. And her late game is, of course, also amazing. And in the jungle, it allows you to farm a little bit safer than when you play in the Baron lane. Vi jungle is great as well, because her buff, the recent buff to her, they gave her bonus AD in the beginning, so she clears jungle even faster now, which is super important in the current meta, where Rift Scuttler got nerfed, so now full jungle clears are really, really good. Next up we have Echo. I feel Echo is on top of the A tier in the jungle, which is decent, but not anything super amazing. And the reason that I'm doing this is because Echo really struggles in the early game to clear the jungle. And I feel this is a major weakness because there's a few reasons. First of all, he clears jungle very slow. Secondly, as an Echo in the jungle, you want to be utilizing your passive, which means you want to be getting a jungle camp to 30% health to then deal the bonus damage. But what's going to happen if you do that? It makes you vulnerable for invades. So when you're up against a Lee Sin, for example, and you smite the red buff at like 1000 HP just to get it down to 500 HP, so you deal the bonus damage, which makes your jungle clear faster. Imagine if anyone, like especially a Lee Sin, invades you and just smites away your red buff. And that can happen. So that's the danger you have with Echo jungle. So it's okay. His ganking is great. His second ability is super good for ganking. But I just feel the problem that he has right here with the jungle clear, that's what makes him like not S tier. Next up, Irelia jungle. Irelia just works everywhere. This champion is just so busted. I don't even want to talk about her, so I'm not. Next up is Rengar. Rengar fell off. They nerfed his starting AD, which means they nerfed his jungle clear in the early game, which hurts him. Like now it takes him a few more seconds to clear out the jungle, which is a lot of time, right? Like it's very, very valuable time. And throughout the game, you know, he just deals less damage now as well. He has less starting AD, and especially in the early game, you can feel it now. Like he just does so much less damage. If you're able to get a few kills, however, he skills just as well into the late game. But of course, you have to get those kills. That's what it's about. So it's just going to be a bit harder to start to come online as a Rengar. But once you do come online, once you get to that late game, it's still the same Rengar that you guys know. Next up, Mundo jungle. I feel he's a bit underrated. Mundo is just such a powerful champion, I feel. Like one of the strongest tanks in the game. Like he's super duper tanky. He fights a lot. He just has a few counters. But if the enemy doesn't pick a lot of those counters, Mundo is just such a good pick. Master Yi with lethal tempo is really good as well. Like such a disgusting rune to go for on this champion. Next up, Tryndamere jungle. It's okay. He struggles a little bit with ganking, but yet again, with the lethal tempo, he's pretty good. Like his jungle clear is decent as well with the third ability. I just feel he's not that powerful. You know, that's why I put him in the middle of the A tier. But he's still good. Like if you skill to the late game, you can still hard carry games. Fiora jungle doesn't work right now. It's like A tier. I actually underestimated Jarvan, but like Fiora should be even lower. Yeah, this is okay. This is fine. So we have Rammus, who is pretty good, you know, pretty good against heavy AD compositions. He's actually S tier, but besides, he would just be A tier. Jarvan is great. You know, they buffed his third ability as well, which makes his team fighting a little bit better because you're gonna be buffing the attack speed of your team like by a lot. Pantheon jungle is good, you know, with his ultimate. His second ability is good for ganking, by the way. It's just solid. Jace, same story as the Baron lane, right? Like he has a pretty good jungle clear. His ganking is not that good. It's okay, but it's not that good. He doesn't skill very well into the late game, but it's like it's all about that mid game with Jace. Like the mid game teamfights, you have such an advantage when you have a Jace. Next up we have some other champions that I don't even want to talk about. Now we have some interesting stuff, guys. Now we have some interesting stuff. The mid lane. So Diana is just crazy strong still. I'm not sure why Diana is not getting nerfed, to be honest. Like she's just so powerful in the mid lane. In solo queue, it's just crazy. Like early game, you can do fine in your lane with your second ability. Like you can survive your lane with your second ability. And then if you get to the late game, you just hard carry the game. It's just so powerful. The passive deals so much damage. The ult deals so much damage. It's just crazy how much damage Diana deals in the late game. And the fact that she doesn't really have any weaknesses. Irelia mid. Now here Irelia is broken because her matchups are much easier. You're up against those ranged champions who if you catch with your stun, you can just kill them. Or if you catch them with your ultimate, you can just kill them. So that's why she's just so much better in the mid lane. Next up we have Orianna. Is there ever gonna be a day where we're not gonna see Orianna on the S plus tier? No, that's the real question because she just always works. She always works. It's so stupid, but she always is a good pick in the mid lane. It really doesn't matter what the enemy picks. It really doesn't matter how the enemy plays. You can always pick Orianna. You'll always skill into the late game. Like if you can skill to the late game, you'll outskill pretty much anyone. It's just a stupid champion, okay? Next up, we have my boy Singed, guys, and I love seeing Singed in the S plus tier because in the mid lane, he is S plus tier. You can push out waves very easily. If you use a fleet footwork, you can survive your lane very easily, especially with the new fleet footwork, where it gives you back mana if you hit the enemy team. It's super duper good. Singed is absolutely giga broken against melee mid laners. So if you're up against like a Yasuo, Galio, Akali, Zed, Graves, whatever, like then he's even S++ tier. But if you're up against a ranged mid laner, just a solid S+ tier. Keep in mind, like if you're up against, as I said, Diana as well, like if you're up against these types of champions, Katarina, S++ plus tier, because you'll win the lane guaranteed. But melee champions, they're gonna poke you a little bit, but you're still gonna be fine. And Singed in the late game can just absolutely hard carry the game, especially with the new Rylai's Scepter, which slows the enemy by 30% now. Way too powerful, guys. It's way too powerful, and they need to nerf Singed, to be honest. Next up is Yasuo, who I feel is very powerful in this meta as well. With the lethal tempo too, the attack speed is so amazing. You can spam your first ability, and you can now build like more AD items instead of actually attack speed items, because you don't need the attack speed anymore because you have the lethal tempo. Next up is Twisted Fate, who is really powerful. You know, his ganking is amazing. With his ultimate, and Twisted Fate, his stuns are amazing. It's just always an amazing champion. He has so much range. He provides so much utility in the late game as well, because you're constantly stunning out the champion. It's just really powerful. Next up is Ziggs, and Ziggs just deals so much damage, guys. It really doesn't matter what meta you have. Ziggs is always good, and they actually tried to nerf Ziggs a few times, but he's still sitting in the S tier, and even in a very high spot. Like, he's one of those champions that can actually beat an Orianna. Like, you can outpoke an Orianna, you can outrange an Orianna, and in a team fight you just deal so much damage. You can stay away from in a very safe distance and outpoke the enemy like crazy. Just constant boom bombs. And after Ziggs, we have a champion that I've very recently fallen in love with, which is Annie. Guys, Annie feels so strong again. Sure, they changed Annie recently. You know, her burst damage is not as broken as it used to be. But the sustained damage of her ultimate is so amazing now. The bear actually deals damage now. That's the beauty of it. Like, when you throw down your bear in a team fight, like, if you don't one-shot an enemy, it's okay. You can just continue fighting with your bear, because the bear deals so much damage. Next up, we have Echo, and I feel this is the role for Echo. I feel that this is the role for Echo, mid lane. We haven't seen too much from Echo yet, but it's a hard champion to play. That is why I feel Echo is going to be S tier in the mid lane. Once people start to get good at Echo, he's going to be really strong. He's a very strong late game champion. He just struggles a little bit in the early game. But as I said, I think if players get good at Echo, it's going to be S tier champion for sure. Next up is Katarina. Katarina is actually not S tier. She's probably A tier. But the thing with Katarina is the only people that play Katarina are Katarina one-tricks. So that's why she's still S tier. Because obviously they're really good at Katarina. So that is really the only reason that I've put her in the S tier. It's kind of funny, but it's true. Next up is Ahri. And Ahri feels surprisingly strong again. I'm not quite sure why. I really am not quite sure why, actually. But she feels very strong again. Like, there was a period where I put Ahri in the A tier because I just really didn't feel she was strong, but now she feels strong again. Like, her roaming is great, her early game presence is great, but even her late game, like catching an enemy with a charm, it just feels very strong. Next up is Akshan, who's very strong, guys. Very strong champion in the current meta as well. Just Akshan never falls off, right? Like, with the third ability that resets when you get a cure and assist, just a very strong champion. I made an Akshan video very recently, by the way, so if you want to check it out, you can, like, for any champion really, you can just look up HellsDevil and then the champion name and you'll see a video, except for a few of them, but I pretty much covered like 95% of the champions already. Next up, we have Galio, and Galio feels significantly weaker with the nerfed second ability now. Still sitting in the S tier, but he's not sitting on, like, I think I've always put him in the S plus tier actually, or like the top of the S tier, but now not anymore. With the new second ability, it's not that strong anymore. Like, the taunt duration is so much lower. It takes so long to actually charge it up. It's balanced now, I would say. Galio is like kind of balanced. Next up, we have Brand, and this is also another champion that is very underrated. Basically, with Brand, if the enemy doesn't have poke, or if the enemy doesn't outrange you, Brand is a good pick. Like, basically, if the enemy doesn't have Morgana, Orianna, Varys, these types of champions, Brand is like always a good pick. Brand is so incredibly good against champions that want to be engaging on you because you can stun them so easily and your ultimate works so well against them. And on Brand, you get a stasis enchant as well. Like, all you have to do on Brand, if the enemy just fully engages on you, use your ultimate and use stasis. That's what you have to do. And then you can flash away and use all of your other abilities. Just such a good champion as long as the enemy doesn't outrange you. Next up is Gragas, and Gragas can be played everywhere, anywhere, whenever. It doesn't matter. Like, the draft doesn't matter. It's always going to be a solid pick. Akali, I feel like a lot of people say she got nerfed, but I feel she's okay. The compromise that they made with her first ability costing less energy is okay. Yeah, like her hard carry potential did get hit a little bit. She can't hard carry as hard anymore, but she's just like she's just good. She's just good. That's what I want to say. Like I put her in the middle of the tier list. Nothing too special, nothing too bad. She's just good. Aurelion Sol, however, this champion in the skilled hands, like so powerful. I'm practicing, guys. I'm seriously trying to get good at him, but it takes time, and it's such a unique playstyle. It's like only a few players really get this playstyle and can make it work. So like Aurelion Sol is either really bad or is really really strong. That's why I gave him the star, because it really depends on the player. Next up we have Veigar, kind of draft dependent. He's very very good into the bruisers because he deals so much damage. He's very good against those engaged champions like the Master Yi, for example, or even a Singed, because his third ability can cage him in. So he's really good against those types of champions that you can actually cage in, use your ultimate against very easily. Lulu mid lane I feel is very underrated. Like she does very well in the mid lane matchup, and if you're playing with a good player, being able to buff that player is of course very good because it's still a Lulu. But as I said, not only that, Lulu in the mid lane is just very strong, and also Lulu in 1v1s is surprisingly strong. She does a pretty decent amount of damage. Her CC is very good as well because she slows the enemy with her first ability and she polymorphs the enemy with her second ability. Now Karma mid lane is also very very strong. Like her first ability, poking, is just very very great. Not gonna talk about Jace again, I already talked about Jace too often. Zed in the mid lane feels a bit underwhelming, and that is because of the nerf to his third ability. Like his third ability just hurts so much less when you hit it multiple times on an enemy. So like they hit him pretty hard. Zed is still okay, but he really doesn't feel that strong right now. I want to be talking about Morgana too, because Morgana did get nerfed in the lane, but she's still okay, right? Like she's still sitting in the A tier. Lucian is good. Yet again, it's just good. Not amazing, it's just good. Fizz feels very underwhelming. Like Fizz used to be S tier or even S plus tier in my tier list, but he just feels very underwhelming, and that may be because of the current meta, but he just feels so underwhelming to me right now. It just like doesn't feel strong, doesn't feel like you can one-shot people as easily anymore. Corki in the mid lane is okay, but besides the package, it's like not amazing, it's just okay. Next up is Kill. And you may think that Kill with a lethal tempo is going to be broken. The answer is no. Kill still sucks. The only playable drafts with Kill is up against like a heavy assassin comp, because that's what Kill excels at against with her ultimate, of course. Or when you have a Yuumi in your team. It's really only those two scenarios where you should be picking Kill. Besides that, never. Alright, let's move on to the Dragon lane. Everything has changed here. Everything, guys. So let's immediately start at the top. We have Kai'Sa. Kai'Sa is so powerful with the lethal tempo as well. Really, really strong. She works perfectly in the current meta as well. She counters out a lot of the top champions, like the Singed, for example. She's just a perfect champion right now. After that, we have Xayah with the lethal tempo, guys. Unbelievably powerful, so good. The attack speed is so good because her attacks already do a lot of damage, and Conqueror is great on her. But what she really wants is the attack speed from lethal tempo, and oh baby, she's so powerful. Not many people are playing her right now, but I'm telling you guys right now, I think she's S plus tier. After that we have Vayne, and Vayne as well with the lethal tempo, you know, even with Conqueror, like, and even with the nerfs. The reason that she's so powerful is because of the enchanter meta. Vayne works so well with the enchanters, like the Janna, like the Lulus, like the Karma, you know, like the Yuumis. It's just a perfect support to have when you play Vayne. Next up we have Caitlyn, and Caitlyn jumped from the A tier to the S plus tier only because of lethal tempo. That's how good lethal tempo is on Caitlyn. Because you have such a long range, you can stack it up super easily. And with that, you can just stack it up and fight. And I actually want to put Ashe in the S plus tier as well. I was debating about that, but I definitely think Ashe is S plus tier as well with the lethal tempo, because it's so easy to stack up. And once you fully stacked it up, like you have like in the late game, you have like between 70 and 85% bonus attack speed, which is crazy, crazy. And it's so easy to get because basic attack first ability takes like literally like 0.1 seconds. And you already have 2 stacks of your lethal tempo, and you'll only need 4 more basic attacks. So it's just so easy to get the full stacks on Ashe. Same story for Jinx, you know, when you use your basic attacks, you can either use your rockets or just your basic attacks. And you can stack up the lethal tempo so easily. If you want to be playing around your rockets with Jinx more, then it's actually better to go for Conqueror still. But if you want to use the machine gun more often, then lethal tempo is amazing. It's really, really good. Ezreal feels surprisingly strong as well because we're not seeing a lot of mages in the meta right now anymore. So you don't feel forced to push as hard anymore. So Ezreal is just good, right? Like Ezreal is just good and he skills very, very well into the late game. Tristana with the lethal tempo as well, really, really nice. Like the attack speed is just so great, especially when you reach the late game, because in the late game Tristana gets so much range, so you can very easily attack the enemy and stack up the lethal tempo. Lucian is really nice as well, you know, not with any new runes or anything. He's just very strong. Like he's just a very solid ADC, works very, very well. They actually buffed Lucian's first ability as well, so we'll take it. Varus has fallen off from the S plus tier to the A tier. Doesn't seem to be fitting too well into the current meta, especially because like all these dragon laners with the lethal tempo feel so powerful, and then you have Varus who doesn't use any of the runes, right? Orianna in the bot lane, you can play her anywhere, it doesn't matter. Brain dead champion, she does fine in the dragon lane as well. Like she does fine everywhere. Then we have Draven, who I feel is a bit underwhelming in the current patch. Sure, it's still Draven. Sure, you can still carry like Draven always does, but I kind of feel he's just not that good, because lethal tempo Draven is definitely not good. It's definitely not good, so he struggles a little bit against the other ADCs. Let's just say it like that. Corki in the dragon lane, you know, when you play him in solo queue, you're not going to be abusing the package as much as competitive, so it's good, don't get me wrong, but it's not amazing, and he doesn't really work that well with the new runes, and he gets countered by the meta ADCs like Ashe and Caitlyn absolutely destroy Corki because of that range. Ziggs, same story as Orianna, you can play him everywhere. You can just, you know, you can just poke with your bombs in lane. He skills very well into the late game. Same story with Veigar, but Veigar is just not as good at doing it as the Orianna and the Ziggs. Twisted Fate can work in the dragon lane too with the lethal tempo, and you just go for full AD Twisted Fate. It's good. Like he has so much attack speed because of it, because his third ability gives him even more attack speed. You just become a machine. The now champion that I want to talk about is this poor dude right here. He feels bad again. All of these ADCs are getting lethal tempo, but Jhin doesn't care about lethal tempo. Jhin is falling off again, and the fleet footwork nerf hit Jhin very badly as well. You now heal much less when you hit minions. It is what it is, guys. I hate to say it, but as a Jhin main myself, Jhin sucks yet again. They finally made him good, but then with the lethal tempo, all the other ADCs are just much, much better than him. It is what it is. That's all I can say. Next up, we have the support tier list, and I actually made this one, I actually copied this one from Keys. I was making these tier lists together with Keys, who's also a Wild Rift streamer, by the way. He's a support main, and this is the tier list that he actually made for support. So let's talk about it. Rakan, he said that Rakan is like utterly broken because Rakan has it all. Rakan has like super good engages. You can build whatever you want with Rakan, right? Like you can go for the Rod of Ages. You can then get the Ziggs Convergence, Ardent Sensor, Rabadon's Death Cap, whatever you need. You can even go for full tank Rakan. Like Rakan just can provide whatever you need Rakan to provide. Next up is Karma, and Karma got nerfed, but her shield didn't get nerfed. And that's what still makes her broken in the support role. The shield just gives so much so much movement speed, so much shielding, and in the late game it's just so broken. Like it's on like a 4-second cooldown and you can just spam it like crazy. Nami is already really strong, but in solo queue Nami is even stronger because her abilities are so good in solo queue. You can catch out enemies with your first ability, you can catch out enemies with your ultimate. You know, your heal does so much damage. In solo queue, Nami is just an amazing champion. Next up is Yuumi, and Yuumi is like probably the most broken out of all of these. But because it's solo queue, she's sitting in the bottom of the S plus tier. Of course, you have to rely on your team to carry when you play Yumi, right? But she's still bottom S plus tier because she's so powerful. The just everything that she provides is way too much in my opinion. The stats that she gives to her team is just way too much. Like, she's really, really strong. Next up is a champion who I have the same opinion on, which is a Lulu. Yet again, you need your team to carry. That's why she isn't just quite as strong as the other champions. Because like with Karma, for example, you also do a lot of damage with your first ability, ultimate, second ability. But with Lulu and Yumi, you're actually pretty much fully reliant on your team to carry because you're just buffing your teammates. Now Senna, Keys had a nice argument for Senna, like if your team is trash, you can just carry the game yourself. And also, you know, your second ability, he said you can catch out enemies very easily in the late game and just win a team fight because of that. Her ultimate is very powerful, and because of this current meta, this is another interesting point Keys brought up. Because of the current enchanter meta, you know, where you have Karma, Nami, Yumi, Lulu, you kind of have a free lane with Senna. You can stack up your stacks for free in lane without really getting punished for it. Like, if you're up against an Alistar or a Leona, for example, you know, they can dive you and kill you. That's also what Keys said. So it makes sense, right? Like, it kind of makes sense. You can scale up for free, and then in the late game, when you have a lot of stacks, you're gonna deal a load of damage. Alistar, I feel Keys is a bit biased by putting Alistar in the S tier. No, but Alistar is good, like especially up against the, like, you know, the Jinx, the Ashe, the not Ezreal, the just these types of ADCs that don't have mobility. This is Keys also mentioned this, by the way, that's why I'm saying it. You can catch them off guard and dive them like crazy, and they won't be able to kill you because of your ultimate. Next up is Thresh, and Thresh just kind of gets punished by these enchanters. He's still very strong, and in the skilled hands, a very strong champion. But if also up against like Caitlyn and Ashe, Thresh gets punished a lot because they have so much range. They have the tools to deal with the Thresh as well. So Thresh just doesn't fit this current meta too well. Sona is still the hidden gem, right? Like, still a gem that not many people are playing right now. Sona is so powerful. The healing, the barriers, everything that she provides in the late game is so damn good. Next up is Braum, who is okay. He does very well into melee champions, but as you can see, there's a lot of enchanters right now. It's not melee champions that are good at the support role. So when you're up against these enchanters, it's going to be really hard to play against them in lane, and you also get outskilled in the late game. Yet again, Keys also said this. He plays a lot of Braum, he knows his stuff, and it makes sense. Soraka feels a bit stronger now because of the buff, the rejuvenation buff. So yeah, Soraka is just good. Janna is super underrated in my opinion. Super duper underrated. Her shielding, her tornado, her slows, her ultimate are all very, very good. Also her roaming ability, because she gets a lot of bonus movement speed when her second ability is not on cooldown. So like, Janna is just very strong, like especially if you have good players in your team too. The third ability, Shield, is so big and it gives a lot of bonus AD to your teammates as well. Leona is great, you know, her ultimate catching out potential is very, very good. She just has so much CC and she's super tanky, so just a very solid champion. Gragas support is Gragas, shouldn't even be talking about Gragas anymore at this point anymore. Seraphine did get nerfed, but as a support, she's still pretty good. She's especially good against melees, like she hard counters melees, because they're very easy to hit with her abilities. Galio's support is not S tier anymore, guys. He went all the way down to the B tier. It really seems like Riot tried to get rid of Galio's support. Like, they just really don't want to be dealing with Galio's support anymore. He's really not that strong anymore. So about the other supports, you know, I can talk about Blitzcrank. He's good to catch out an enemy. I would actually say he's better than Seraphine. I would put him here. He's good at catching out the enemies. They actually buffed his third... Actually, wait a minute. They buffed his third ability. What am I talking about? He's way better now. They buffed his third ability. He's in the A tier. Yeah, they buffed his third ability. The cooldown is so much less now. And then besides, we have Lux support, who is good if you can catch an enemy, but nothing too special. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this tier list video. And yeah, I will see you all in the next Wild Rift video. Bye bye.